Hello, I'm James Henry, and this has been a week of reflections on Holy Week. Each day of Holy Week, this is the fifth of those that happen at noontime each of the days, as you know. Here you are. Each day we do Lectio Divina. Lectio Divina is Latin for sacred reading, and we take a text from the week of the crucifixion of Jesus leading up to today, Good Friday, which is the day of the crucifixion. And with each one, we listen for a word, image, or phrase, thought that arises for us of perhaps something God is trying to say to us right now. Now, what I encourage you to do is to listen. You can pause the video as soon as I have finished reading. I'm reading today. As soon as I've finished reading the text, you can pause it and ponder for yourself what you feel rising for you. But then in response to the Lectio, I myself will reflect on what rose up for me as I read the text. So prepare yourself. Bring yourself into the moment, perhaps just breathe, paying attention to your breathing. You might close your eyes if you want to as you listen, or you might just gaze down at the floor with an unfocused gaze and just listen to what is said. See what image, what word, what phrase, what thought rises for you, and what you may think Spirit is actually telling you through that or because of that today. So I'm going to be reading to you part of the crucifixion narrative from the Gospel of John in the 19th chapter, beginning with verse 17. Jesus was now taken in charge and carrying his own cross went out to the place of the skull, as it is called, or in the Jewish language, Golgotha. Where they crucified him, and with him two others, one on the right, one on the left, and Jesus between them. And Pilate wrote an inscription to be fastened to the cross. It read, "Jesus of Nazareth, King of the Jews." This inscription was read by many Jews because the place where Jesus was crucified was not far from the city, and the inscription was in Hebrew, Latin, and Greek. Then the Jewish chief priests said to Pilate, "You should not write King of the Jews. Write, he claimed to be the King of the Jews." Pilate replied, "What I have written, I have written." The soldiers, having crucified Jesus, took possession of his clothes and divided them into four parts, one for each soldier, leaving out the tunic. The tunic was seamless, woven in one piece throughout. So they said to one another, "We must not tear this. Let us toss for it." And thus the text of Scripture came true. They shared my garments among them and cast lots for my clothing. That is what the soldiers did. But meanwhile, near the cross where Jesus hung stood his mother, with his mother, Mary, wife of Clopas, and Mary of Magdala. Jesus saw his mother with the disciple whom he loved standing beside her. He said to her, "Mother, there is your son," and to the disciple, "There is your mother." And from that moment, the disciple took her into his home. After that, Jesus, aware that all had now come to its appointed end, said in fulfillment of Scripture, "I thirst." A jar stood there full of sour wine, so they soaked a sponge with the wine, fixed it on a javelin, and held it up to his lips. Having received the wine, he said, "It is accomplished." He bowed his head and gave up his spirit. Once again, there's a lot going on in this one, isn't there? A lot of pieces that could stand out if you were listening. I don't know what stood out to you. I encourage you to pause and take a moment to think about that, what stood out, what might have been rising. But for me, I got caught on those last words of Jesus. It is accomplished. It is done. Oftentimes, it is finished. Now he could simply be speaking about his life. But I think of endings and beginnings. I think of, for me, recognizing that each moment ends and I'm flowing into that next moment is arising, that everything comes to an end, including the human life of the Christ in form, Jesus, came to an end. And that life coming to an end, it seems so fitting to me when I think of when things get finished, based on this whole 40 days of Lenten preparation for Easter for me has been a time to kind of reflect on what it means to be mortal, to be finite, to only have a limited time to do what I have to do. And Jesus had somewhere between 1 and 3 years to do that. Jesus had between 1 and 3 years to accomplish what he did. And in the end, as he hung on that cross, the last words, "It is accomplished." What I came to do, I've done. There's always more we imagine that could be done, but it is enough. It is enough. It is finished. It is accomplished. It is complete. So I wonder if you might give yourself some credit for the things you've been able to accomplish in your life. I'm trying to do the same thing for me. There are some things that are finished. I keep trying to revive them perhaps in my life, but they're done. And then there are other things that need to go on. And perhaps for me, that it is accomplished. It feels a little out of context for me to say this, but for me, that's where I found Spirit speaking to me today. What would it be like to know in every given moment, in any given moment, that I have done all that I could do and that it could be finished? What would it look like? Can I feel that? Can I feel that? That's what it said to me. As always, I encourage you, if you have responses to today's reflection, to the text, what you heard the text saying to you, I encourage you to write it in the comments on the Facebook feed. You could write it on the comments in our YouTube channel, if that's where you're watching. And you could write it in your journal and keep it for yourself. What do you think God might be saying to you on this Good Friday? Well, remember, even as you go from this place, you are infinitely precious. You are unconditionally loved for the gift you already are. Go in God's peace until the next